Okay, hey everybody, Teching 101 here. Probably the last video of 2024. I might film something else tomorrow. I'm filming this on the 30th, so maybe something tomorrow, but I'm thinking this is going to be the last one. How was 2024, everybody? Was it good? Was it bad? I mean, at this point, what's the difference, right? I mean, like, was it a slightly better year than 2023, or was it slightly worse, or was it a landslide? I don't know. I don't know. But hey, here's to 2025. Yeah. Okay. I was just talking about this with a friend the other day that I remember making a video like December 31st of 2019 being so excited for 2020 and the brand new decade, and we all know what happened there, right? So yeah, we're just gonna play that close to the chest from now on. Just like, are we excited? Not really. Okay. All right, so in today's episode, does anybody remember the Maury Povich show? I used to watch it occasionally. If you're not familiar, it's the show that originated a lot of the memes of like, you are the father, because it was like an American talk show where it'd be like, oh, this person claims to be the father or not the father of this baby, and they do the test, and then they have the whole show, and then at the very end of the show, it's just like, you are not the father, or you are the father. Okay, great. So you got the premise. All right, well, we're going to be doing that. We're going to be doing an episode of Maury Povich with Colin, the giant child, or the half-giant child that is actually based off of Vicky the Viking, which is the cartoon that Oda watched growing up, and that inspired a lot of stuff in Elbaf, right? That kind of kicked off his love for, like, Vikings and stuff. And so there's a lot of characters in One Piece that are based off of characters from Vicky the Viking, actually. Usopp's Elbaf outfit is based off a character from that, I think. Anyway, so in the last chapter, or one of the last chapters, the last chapter was 1135. In 1134, the last official chapter, we met Ripley. Okay, Ripley is the biology teacher at the Walrus School, and we have learned from her that she is one of the last generation of warfaring giants on Elbaf, because a lot of the other giants, the kids now, like the Gen Alpha of the giants or whatever, they are all about peace and, understanding one another and like their feelings and everything. And so they're probably not going to grow up to be like pirates like Dory and Broggy and go out to sea and pillage and raid and everything like that. That's not going to be the next generation of Elbaf. Now, Ripley is supportive of the children here, and that's the reason she teaches at the Walrus School, but she's also very nostalgic for her time being a warrior. In the last chapter, the unofficial chapter, when Colin went to go attack Luffy from behind, and Luffy dodged and was about to use Gear Third on Colin, and everyone's like, hey, calm down here. Ripley kind of like, hey, Colin, knock it off, not the place, but also, good first attack. Good job. Good job. If Luffy wasn't a Yonko, that would have been a great first strike. So it's like, oh, yeah, my son might grow up to be a warrior. I'm okay with that. Or he could grow up to understand peace and understanding. I'm okay with that, too. So that's Ripley as Colin's mom, as we find out. And Colin's father is, in fact, a human. And that's who we're going to be talking about today, who Colin's father is. By the way, side tangent. The entire time, every time I hear Ripley, I immediately think of Sigourney Weaver's character from Alien and Aliens. So some of the giants, not all of the giants, but some of the giants are named after professional wrestlers. Dory and Broggy are both named after like old school wrestlers. Broggy is named after, I wrote them all down here because I don't watch wrestling. Bruiser Brody, who that is, Broggy's namesake. And then Dory's namesake is Dory Funk Jr. Okay, maybe also some relation to Queen there with the funk. I don't know. But Dory Funk Jr. and Bruiser Brody. Also, Broggy's weapon is the Bruiser Axe. So maybe some reference there. Ripley is probably more familiar with a lot of people that do watch wrestling like now. Rhea Ripley. That's probably the basis there. Goldberg's namesake is Bill Goldberg. Road might be based off of the wrestling duo, the Road Warriors. So there you go. But they're not all based off. Like, obviously, Loki is a name from Norse mythology, right? And then Jorl and Jarl are like Scandinavian terms, so not all of them. I actually don't know Oimo and Kashi. I think Oimo and Kashi are not based off of wrestlers either. They might be, but some of them are. Okay, so I just wanted to throw that out there as like a weird tangent kind of thing. All right, so what do we know about Colin's daddy? Okay, we know he's a human. All right, that narrows it down. There are a lot of people in One Piece that are not humans, so that narrows it down. He's a human. He used to be a pirate. Okay, that actually does narrow it down quite a bit. We're not just looking for a pirate. We're looking for an ex-pirate. Somebody that was a pirate at one point and then retired from being a pirate. That is actually a shorter list that you might think. So that actually will help it narrow it down considerably. Unless Oda decides to reveal a brand new character that we've never heard about before, or a character that we might have, inferred their existence, but not really. Like if it turns out to be Silver Axe from like Rox's crew. Like, yeah, okay, Silver Axe was a pirate, not a pirate anymore. It used to be on Rox's crew, but we have no idea about what Silver Axe on Rox's crew looked like, or I'm assuming he used a silver axe, but beyond that, we don't know anything. Same thing with Wang Ji, could be this kid's dad, very possible, but aside from that, we don't know. And also Colin added that my dad was an ex-pirate that was a human that was not afraid of anything, even the giants of Elbaf he was not afraid of. Okay, so this is a badass we're talking about here. Okay, we're not just talking about your average pirate from a couple decades ago. No, we're talking about an ex-pirate who is badass that could go up against like I'm gonna arm wrestle the giants. Like that's the kind of guy, right? Okay, so that I think gives us a list that we could go through here. So in terms of characters that we know about, as in like they're still like in the canon of the story that are not dead or are not imprisoned, because the implication, because Ripley goes on to say that like, yeah, there's an age gap between me and my husband. We'll get to that in a moment. But the implication is, yeah, they're still alive. They're perfectly fine. Probably living on Elbaf right now. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're away somewhere. I'm thinking the silhouetted individual, even if you don't want to say it's Shiki, I think it's Shiki because come on, it's Shiki. But even if it isn't Shiki, that is probably Ripley's husband. Okay, if you want to say it's Scopper Gabon, okay, fine, it's Scopper Gabon, but that is probably going to be Scopper, boinked Ripley, and, Colin was born. There you go. That's how it goes, right? Okay. I also love Sanji's reaction to this. Like, wait, your dad's a human? Wait a second. Okay. Sanji looks over at Gerd, so it's like, okay, so this is possible. Sanji, quit hitting on the 75-year-old woman, okay? It's a little creepy, all right? Just saying. Gerd is 75. So we do not know how old Ripley is, although Ripley does state that she is part of the last generation of proper warriors from Elbaf. Now, what does that mean, okay? Proper warriors from Elbaf. Because we know the children growing up right now are not going to be warriors, or they're probably not going to grow up to be warriors. They don't want to be warriors, right? Luffy actually calls them, like, wimps, because they don't, like, they're afraid of swinging on a swing set, and Zoro called them brats, and the kids were like, hey, you can't call people mean names like that. So Luffy's a little bit disappointed in that, right? So they're clearly not warriors. Right? So, Dory and Broggy were the last proper captains of the Giant Warrior Pirates. The Giant Warrior Pirates is like a crew that has existed in Elbaf for many generations. It's just that Dory and Broggy were the last captains of it. Yorl and Jarl were the captains before Dory and Broggy, and then we can infer that just kept going back through the, the lines of giants, okay? And so that was a constant pirate crew until Dory and Broggy had that hunting contest. They got into an argument, and then they started that duel on Little Garden, and the crew kind of broke up after that, and then eventually some of the crew got captured by the Marines, and then Mother Caramel got, involved there and stopped the execution, and then the Lamb's House got started up on Elbaf, and all that jazz, okay? So the Giant Warrior Pirates kind of ended there. Hyrudin at that time was around 18 years old, so he was like the next generation after Dory and Broggy. Dory and Broggy are both 160 years old, okay? And if you divide that by 3, which is like the general rule for giants' age compared to human ages, Dory and Broggy are around they're around 53 right now, okay? So you could say Hyrudin's generation is like immediately after this, okay? Hyrudin right now is 81. Okay, so that's right around 27. So he's like in his late 20s. So Dory and Broggy, early 50s. Gerd and Hyrudin, mid-20s, and then Rode and Goldberg are a little younger. They'd be like in there, like around 20, 21, something like that. Okay, so that's that generation. So you could, have room for like maybe Ripley is like around, 110. That would be like around Saul's generation, because I think Saul is like 120 right now or some such like that, okay? So Saul and Ripley could have been around the same age. I like to think that Ripley is around the same age as Dory and Broggy, maybe 150 years old, something like that, which would put her somewhere in her like late 40s for a human. She just looks really good. She just aged really well or whatever, okay? But she's like roughly around the same age as Dory and Broggy, okay? Now, why is that important? Well, she does say there's a very big age gap between her and her husband, but the thing is, like, if she was, let's say, around the same age as Gerd, who is 75, a lot of the people on this list, like Shiki, would be in his 70s. Scopper Gabon would be in his 70s. So if she's like part of Gerd and Hyruden's generation, there really wouldn't be that much of an age gap there. It's like she's like 90 and Scopper is what, like 77 or something? Like that's not that big of a gap, okay? So for this to work, she would have to be around the same age as Dorian Bragi. Like she might be around Kureha's age, if not like a little older than that, somewhere around there, okay? That's for this to make sense, okay? So we have Shiki, we have Scopper. Those are both pirates. We don't know for sure what's up with Shiki in the canon of the manga. We saw him at God Valley. He's a part of the canon. He's there. He doesn't have the wheel in his head yet, although that would have taken place before Ed War anyway, so we don't know. And then we know that Higurashi, Orochi's grandma, turned into him with the power of the Mane Mane no Mi. So that's kind of it we know from Shiki. We know he fought at God Valley and then kind of disappeared. We don't know how much Oda's going to incorporate Strong World into Shiki's story. I honestly feel like enough time has passed that if Oda wants to change that around a bit, he can. Like, if he doesn't want to have Shiki have the wheel in his head, I think that's fine. If he wants to mess around with him having the float fruit or not having the float fruit or giving him another devil fruit altogether or something that's like a mythical zone that can fly or just a regular zone that can fly, you know, something like that. If he wants to play around with Shiki's character a bit, I think it's okay. But he's kept the same general design. He also uses the dual swords. We saw that at God Valley, so it might be a thing where he still lopped off his legs and, you know, escaped Impel Down and all that stuff. So I don't know. I feel like Oda, Shiki being canon is kind of a unique example of like he was in a movie like, you know, well over a decade ago, and he also drew Chapter 0 and he was there as well. So I have a feeling Oda is going to keep most of that canon, except maybe change one or two things around that he maybe didn't like. Scopper Gabon is the third strongest member of the Roger Pirates, all right? And he has kind of been MIA as well. We don't know where he is. Roger, well, technically we don't know where Roger is either. He's dead, but where did they put his body? That's actually a legitimate question, okay? Like, the whole deal is at Marineford, remember, it was a big deal for Shanks to be like, hey, I'm taking Whitebeard's body and Ace's body, and I'm giving them a proper burial. I'm not leaving them here at Marineford, okay? But what happened to Roger's body? What did the government do to it? You know what? It's really messed up, but I don't think they would have just chucked it in a ditch. You want to say that, right? Like, oh, yeah, they just, you know, killed him at Logtown and then rolled him into a ditch. Ha, ha, ha. No, I think it would be more messed up for the story if they took Roger's body, like, back to Marijua and some Tenryubito used it as, like, their decoration or something like that. Like, we're going to see Garling's, like, drawing room at one point where it's like, oh, yes, come over into my lounge and let's have a cup of tea. And you go into Garling's, like, house and, like, Roger's body is, like, just pinned to the wall. It's like a skeleton at this point. Be like, oh, that's the corpse of Goldie Roger, king of the pirates. He kidnapped my son and then raised him to be a pirate. So anyway, that's his body. Pretty cool. Worth a lot of money. Anyway, what's up? Like, that's going to be Garling's, like, that honestly, that makes a lot of sense. I just kind of pulled that out of nothing, but, you know, whatever. So that's what's up with Roger. We don't know. But then Rayleigh. Rayleigh, we know, is happily married to Shaki, living on the Sabaody archipelago. So unless Rayleigh is cheating on Shaki, which I doubt he would do, I don't think Rayleigh is, Ripley's husband, her husbando, okay? So Scopper does make the most sense, but remember, there's also a lot more people on Roger's crew. Like, we have a whole list over here. You can remove Odin because he's also happily married. He's also dead as well. What happened to his corpse? What happened to these corpses after they were killed? Okay, in the case with Odin, I could kind of see Orochi being terrified of, you know, the prophecy that he would have just, like, burned Odin's corpse and then crushed the skull. Of course, Odin's skeleton was probably made out of adamantine. It's probably, like, the same as Wolverine's skeleton, so that would have been pretty hard to destroy. But you know what I mean, right? Anyway, there's a lot of people on Roger's crew here. It could be Spencer. It could be Millet Pine. Millet Pine kind of looked like, not a giant, but he had, like, a Viking aesthetic going on. Oh, it could be Aereo. Remember Aereo? Yeah, this dude right here with the fisherman hat and the mustache and the Hawaiian shirt. This motherfucker knows what the One Piece is. I want to know Ario's story. He looks like a random tourist that was on an island with his wife and just snapping pictures. Oh boy, honey, we got to get back to the ship. We don't want to miss the next tour. And then, it's like a 3-hour tour, and he ends up on the Oro Jackson by accident. And Roger's like, oh, matey, welcome aboard to me ship. Looks like you got on the wrong vessel. Well, we can't go back now. Welcome aboard the Roger Pirates. Let's make waves in the new world. And Ario is like, okay. And so that's how he became a pirate. But he knows what the One Piece is. Could be Ario, right? Okay. I mean, that is, these characters are all named, and we saw them before in Odin's flashback. It could be Spencer. It could be the dude that does look like an old-fashioned Popeye sailor with the red and white striped shirt and the skipper hat. Could be that dude with the corncob pipe, right? Could be that guy. Why not, right? But that's not very exciting if it turns out to be Spencer the whole time. I mean, I would know who that is, but most of the One Piece fan base would be like, who is that? Whatever. But then again, that would be an interesting way to expand a lot of the lore of the Roger Pirates. What happened to them all, right? Seriously. What happened to some of these people? I'm assuming some of them are straight up dead, because there's enough of them that Oda might be like, oh yeah, this person died, right? Whatever, who cares? Some of them might have been executed. Some of them might have been captured at some point and executed by the government. And I think a lot of them, though, just ran into hiding, they're in hiding, and Rayleigh even said, I don't know where everybody is. I don't know where they all ended up, right? Now, Scopper is just the prime candidate because he's the third strongest right after Rayleigh and Roger. So, instead of picking out a random person of Roger's crew, just pick Scopper, because he actually has had some moments in the Odin's flashback and stuff. Actually, more in the anime. We had that whole scene where they were on Jaya, So, yeah, I mean, okay, Scopper uses axes to fight. That's like a giant weapon. I don't know. Really, it doesn't really matter who it turns out to be if it is. Because I think unless it turns out to be this one particular person coming up next that I'm going to suggest, it's going to be we don't know that much about the individual. We really don't know that much about Shiki. We really don't know that much about Scopper Gabon. So we're going to be learning a lot of lore about the character through Elbaf if it turns out to be either of those people. Same thing if it turns out to be Wang or Silver Axe or somebody there. If it turns out Rox is still alive and he's been living on Elbaf and he's Colin's father, that would be wild. And the father is Roxy Zebek. I don't think it's Roxy Zebek. We're going to just take Rox off the table here. But there is another person that used to be a pirate but isn't anymore, that gave up the pirate life. We assume this person to be dead, but they could be. They could not be. It's One Piece at this point, so who knows who's dead at this point. But what about Yorkie? What about Yorkie? Brooks' old captain on the Rumbar crew. So, he got sick with that disease, and then he's like, all right, we're done being pirates. We're going to leave the Grand Line. We're going to get out of here. Brooke, you take half of the crew that isn't infected, you be the new captain, and you continue on the dream and try to make it, all the way through. And so then we all know what happened with Brooke. They got attacked by another crew, may or may not have been the Germa. They used poison, and then that's how Brooke died, and he was reanimated with the Yomi Yomi no Mi, right? Okay. So it's always been a big question, did Yorkie die? Did he sailed into the Calm Belt? This would have been well over 50 years ago, 52 years ago, something like that. Actually, no, a little bit longer than that, actually. I don't know. It depends. It depends on how long it was from when the crew split in half until that Brooke died. It might have only been a year. It could have been 5 years. I don't know. I think it was honestly a year. I don't think it was that long. But at any rate, around 50 years ago, this happened. Yorkie was in his prime back then. I'd probably say in his 20s or 30s. So he probably would be around the same age Brooke is right now. And Brooke is 90. There's plenty of humans that are older than 90. Streusen is older than 90. Haradis, the weather wizard that trained Nami, he's older than 90. So Yorkie of surviving the disease and then retiring the life of a pirate and living in one of the four blues. I guess that's possible. But then him making it all the way to the New World, all the way to Elbaf, and developing a reputation of being so badass that even giants don't fear him. Look, I got nothing against Yorkie. I didn't get that vibe from Yorkie. Yorkie's cool. He had cool tattoos. He had a cowboy hat. But did you really get the impression from Yorkie that he was the biggity badass pirate conquering the New World, even the giants, an army of giants, let's go, I'm Yorkie? never really got that impression from Yorkie, sorry. So I don't think it's him, but he does technically fit the criteria, just throwing it out there, right? By that logic, I guess it also could be Kuro, because he was a retired pirate, but no, it's not Kuro. Colin, we don't know how Colin, like how old he is or how this even works, considering his dad is a human, but his mom is a giant. How does that work? I have no idea, okay? But suffice to say, Colin was probably born around, at minimum 10 years ago. Probably a lot longer than that, though. Okay, I would assume. Like, if his dad was an ex-pirate, and if it was Scopper or Shiki, like, let's assume, like, 20-something years ago, that's when they retired being pirates, and that's when they met. They would have already had to have been accomplished pirates to even reach Elbaf. Elbaf is deep in the New World. Even getting there is tough. So Shiki or Scopper, Silver Axe or Wang Ji, or anybody that was on the Roger crew, or anybody that was on the Rocks crew, they are prime candidates for this, and I think it has to be somebody there. Anybody else, like, you know, throwing out like Yorkie, for example, I just don't think makes sense. But yeah, 20-something years ago, they made it to Elbaf. They retired there, had a relationship with Ripley, and then Colin was born soon after. That probably makes the most sense. Okay, like something like 20-something years ago. Sure, we'll go with that, I guess. But yeah, that is the best idea I got there, just kind of going over the limited information we have right now. Of course, whoever Colin's dad is going to be very relevant to the Elbaf arc. I think also for the fact that Oda is setting up Colin to have, like, you know, he's going to be the kid that pals around with the Straw Hats for the arc, just like Isa did in Skypiea, right? Or Chimney and Gombe did during Water 7 in Enies Lobby. Okay, that's like he's going to have a subplot, especially from what we learned about him and how he doesn't get along with the other kids. There's going to be something there where he learns about the values of peace, but also maybe the other kids learn about, like, not being like, you know, peace is great, but sometimes when your homeland is threatened, you might have to pick up a sword and, you know, to protect your family kind of situation, right? So this might be a situation for both Colin teaching the other kids how to fight, and then the other kids teaching Colin, like, it's okay to not constantly be fighting all the time. Like, it's okay to take a rest once in a while, right? So that's kind of the idea there. But anyway, that's the video. Hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all had a great 2024, or like a 2024, or if it was awful, at least we're getting a new one. We're out with the old and with the new, I suppose. All right, 2025. See you then. Here on the channel. Yeah. Anything to add, Barry? Last line of 2024. Go, Barry.